It's 2018. There's gonna be drag kids in the world. And I'm one of them.
So here we are, with child drag queens being paraded around as the new normal, the new healthy, the new way for your son to express his individuality. Because after all, it is 2019, the current year in fact, and this is the level we have sunk to. Well, actually that clip was clearly filmed in 2018, which was last year, so I'm guessing as this is 2019, we are going to sink even lower. As that's the thing with progressive politics. It just keeps on progressing. But where is it progressing to? Where is this all going to end? Well, I can answer that for you. It ends when the final taboo is broken, when every single moral boundary is breached, when every single barrier of decency has been smashed. And some people will be quick to chime in that this is all about attacking masculinity. It's all about making little boys into little girls. It's about emasculating future generations of men. And sure, to a degree it is. That's definitely part of what is going on here. Promoting child drag queens certainly helps push that agenda. And that agenda is definitely being pushed more and more. But I think the emasculation of young boys is actually the smaller part of this. The big part of this is actually the normalisation of paedophilia. The real drive behind this part of the progressive agenda is the sexualisation of children and the normalisation of viewing children as sexual objects, and by extension, this all normalises the practice of placing children within completely inappropriate and sexualised environments. And I called this. I stated some time ago that this was where the so-called sexual revolution was leading. Over 2 years ago, I released a video called "The LGBT Agenda is Helping to Normalise Paedophilia." It's linked in the description below. In that video, I presented a large amount of evidence showing how the same people who pushed for LGBT acceptance were now pushing for much worse. And I cited articles from mainstream news sources that attempted to normalise incest, bestiality, and yes, even paedophilia. And the way these articles tried to normalise these sexual perversions was through humanising the people who participated in them. And we will come back to that theme later. But since that video was uploaded, we have seen the rise of what has been termed child drag queens. Little boys who are paraded around, dressed in drag, sexualised, and then leered at by grown men. And when we say little boys, we are not talking about boys who have reached puberty. We are not talking about mature boys. We are talking about little boys. Boys aged 10 or 11, and sometimes even younger. And this horrific trend reached a new low at the end of last year, when one of these child drag queens danced at an adult homosexual venue in New York as grown men threw money at him as if he was a stripper. I read this from LifeSite, and I quote, New York, New York, December the 17th, 2018. Perhaps sensing the horrific optics of the event, LGBT news sites have assiduously avoided reporting that their favourite 11-year-old drag kid, Desmond is Amazing, danced on stage in a New York gay bar while adult male patrons tossed money his way as if he were a male stripper. The pre-adolescent boy, dressed in drag to imitate singer Gwen Stefani, pranced around the stage at Brooklyn's $3 bill, an LGBT bar described as queer-owned and operated, and Brooklyn's premier queer bar and performance venue. End quote. So let's break this down. We have an adult homosexual venue that had a child drag queen perform on stage as adult homosexual men threw money at him. And this is tolerated, and no doubt even applauded by many liberal and progressive thinkers and policymakers. But don't fool yourself into thinking this is an isolated incident. Oh no, This is part of a concentrated effort to normalize this kind of behavior and paint this kind of activity as both healthy and normal, all under the guise of acceptance and tolerance and letting people express themselves. I read this from The Blaze, and I quote, Nemis Quinn Melanson Golden, 10, aka Queen Lactatia, appears in a Hook magazine feature that glorifies the child's drag queen lifestyle. A photo shoot for the magazine included an unpublished photo of Nemis with the nude winner of RuPaul's Drag Race, Violet Chachki, who is wearing nothing but high heels and a tiny patch of black fabric across the genital area. The photo appeared on Twitter. In it, Nemis is leaning in toward Violet with a wow expression on his face. According to credits, Jonathan Turton photographed the spread, which includes Nemis sitting with his legs open in an evening-style black dress, a bright purple wig, and fishnet stockings. End quote. A 10-year-old boy dressed in women's clothes posing with a naked man who is pretending to be a woman. What's your problem with that, bigot? Don't you know it's the current year? But we all know what liberals and progressives will say. These are just isolated cases. This is fringe behavior. It's not like it's mainstream.
Please welcome Desmond Napoles, aka Desmond is amazing. Hello, Desmond. How are you? How you doing?
Thanks for being here.
That clip was taken from Good Morning America, a daily show on a major US network that has a viewership of roughly 4.5 million people. If that's not an example of this being pushed by the mainstream, I don't know what is. And the boy featured in that clip, the same one featured in the clip at the beginning of this video, is known as Desmond is Amazing. He is 11. He shot to prominence in 2017 when images of him performing at gay pride events went viral. But he was active on the gay pride scene much earlier and appeared in a music video for the song The Bacon Shake, performed by a drag queen called Jinx Monsoon when he was aged just 7. And that in itself is quite strange if you ask me. Why would a 7-year-old have such awareness of sexual ideas and themes? Unless someone has attempted to indoctrinate that child. But reading from his Wikipedia page may give you a clue about this. And I quote, Desmond identifies as gay and states that he has been out since a very early age. Desmond's parents stated that at the age of 2 or 3, they understood that he was likely gay, and they exposed him to a variety of gay culture, including showing him drag performances and taking him to pride parades. Desmond's parents stated that he was openly gay when he entered kindergarten. Desmond's mother reports that he began gravitating towards drag performances when he was 2 and watched RuPaul's Drag Race. End quote. Sounds like indoctrination to me. I mean, homosexuality is a sexual orientation. It refers to the gender that a person has a romantic or sexual attraction to. Why would a child be even thinking about sexual themes and ideas? And let's get this straight. Desmond's parents claim that he was openly gay before he entered kindergarten, which for the record starts at 5 years of age in the US. But indoctrinating children and pushing sexual material upon them is sadly nothing new, as similar material and themes are already being pushed in schools and libraries. Remember Drag Queen Story Hour, where toddlers had progressive stories read to them by drag queens in public libraries? Now again, I could go into this in much more depth. However, I already made an entire video on this very topic. It's called Drag Queens Invited into British Primary Schools. Again, it's linked in the description below. But this sickening trend of sexualizing children and normalizing behavior that is clearly highly inappropriate is nothing new. And it certainly isn't a series of isolated cases or fringe behavior. The liberal political establishment and the mainstream media are committed to pushing this agenda and are doing so at an alarming pace. And the only logical conclusion that one can draw is that this push is an attempt to break the final taboo, that the people promoting this are attempting to normalize the sexualization of children and ultimately attempting to normalize paedophilia. And the people doing this are the same ones that pushed for every other form of sexual taboo to be taken out of the closet and paraded publicly as both normal and healthy, whilst at the same time admonishing anyone that attempted to push back against this trend as intolerant, a hater, and a bigot. And you've heard their arguments before. Calm down, bigot. This isn't about you. This is about letting people love. It's about tolerating other people's choices, letting people express themselves. It's not like they will be coming into schools and forcing it upon your children. Well, that's exactly what they have done, because your children are their target. And all this has been done through careful and calculated emotional manipulation. Every form of sickness and degeneracy that has been normalised has been done so by making the public feel sympathy for those that the media have held up as the poster boys for whatever they are currently trying to normalise. And they have even tried to do this with actual paedophiles. Two mainstream news outlets, Salon and Vice, attempted to do this with a self-confessed paedophile named Todd Nickerson. Salon has since removed their article. However, it's still available on archive sites. The Vice article, titled "A Paedophile Opens Up About Being Targeted by Vigilantes," is however still live. This article talks about the stigma attached to being a paedophile. It then goes on to attempt to make the reader feel sorry for the paedophile in question, before finally asserting that stigmatizing paedophiles can in fact endanger children. So you can effectively see that the mainstream media and the liberal establishment are actually pushing a two-pronged attack here. Not only have they normalised every single kind of perversion, even attempting to make the public feel sympathy for paedophiles, but they are also trying to sexualise children and are actually preparing children to be targeted by sexual predators by placing them in wholly inappropriate situations and environments. Because remember, if liberals can tell you that your child can consent to a sex change, that your child can consent to choosing their sexual orientation before they enter kindergarten, what else will liberals say that your child can consent to? Why not ask these people exactly what their sacred chant of "love is love" actually encompasses? Because none of this has happened by accident. This is a concerted effort by the mainstream media and the liberal establishment that is aimed at undermining our society and destroying our civilization by completely smashing our moral compass. Our enemies have not only made us tolerate degeneracy and perversion, but they have held up degeneracy and perversion as virtues, as traits that should be aspired to and seen as not just healthy and normal, but in fact as ideals that should be placed on a pedestal and worshipped. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help spread the message by liking and sharing it on social networks. If you want to hear more from me, please hit the subscribe button, as new videos are posted every week. You can also read my book, The Fall of Western Man. It's available as a free ebook and in both hardback and paperback, and all the links are in the description below. Finally, if you want to join in the discussion with me, feel free to add me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. Also, you can now follow me on Gab, Minds and BitChute as well. Everyone's welcome.